My name is Chris, and today we're going to take a look at a Fluance product duo. Welcome to the Vinyl Attack. After my basement flooded this past summer and the Fluance RT85 I had just reviewed was irreparably damaged, I thought for sure my time doing product reviews had come to an abrupt end before it even had a chance to get started. Who in their right mind would want to send a product to the guy who lost the very first item he was sent? I was terribly embarrassed to have to tell the kind folks at Fluance that their flagship turntable was floating in my basement and there was no bringing it back. Thankfully, these people were incredibly understanding and were much more concerned with my well-being than the turntable they'd sent over. Shortly thereafter, Mark, who was my contact at Fluance and an extremely nice guy I might add, wanted to know if I'd be interested in taking a look at more of an entry-level turntable and their new powered bookshelf speakers, the AI41. Apparently, he was the kind of person that would send a product for review to a guy who just lost the very first item he was sent. And I'm quite grateful. Now, I'm sure the next event was purely coincidental, but Mark decided to depart the company and introduce me to my new contact, Caitlin. She immediately took the ball and ran with it and had the aforementioned product shipped out to me with tracking numbers in no time flat. Now it was just a matter of my new favorite pastime, waiting for items to arrive in the mail. When the boxes finally arrived, I was pleasantly surprised to see that the RT82 was the same wonderful bamboo color that the 85 I had reviewed was. I simply think the bamboo finish with the matte black hardware is a fantastic combination, and I was glad to have it in home again. If you're unfamiliar with the reference series of turntables from Fluance, the base construction from the 82 up to the 85 is actually the same. The feet, plinth, motor, electronics, tone arm, and even dust cover are all the same. So you might start to wonder if it's worth your while, and money, to purchase the higher-end 85, which is selling for $499 US right now, when you can easily have the 82 for a mere $299. This is a fair question, and this, more than the major sonic in-depth dive I do regularly, will be the focus when talking about the turntable this week. I'll still talk about the table's sonic performance, of course, but with my review of the RT85 handling much of the heavy lifting in regards to the details about this table, I think you might be more interested in hearing how they stack up against one another. I also have a comparison for the AI41s, but that's later in the episode, so let's start with what makes the RT82 different from the 85 and what you can expect from each. It's clear to me that when the designers of the Fluance reference series sat down to find out how best to offer value for money in the build of these tables, much thought went into their foundation. Taking a solid, mass-loaded, multi-layered MDF wood chassis on which to build their turntables was an excellent idea that allowed for several easy options for upgrades. Using the same stable motor in all of these designs was just another signal that Fluance was looking to pass on as much quality as they could in an affordable package while not cutting corners that other manufacturers often seem to do in a similar price range. I'm certain you've come across this just as I have as of late. With these things in mind, it became fairly clear to me that these tables really didn't have that much difference between them at all. As a matter of fact, there were far more similarities than there were differences. You might think that that's not a grand idea, as their top table is so close in construction to their less expensive offering, but that's actually where the brilliance comes in. They're not charging top dollar price for a very well constructed entry offering, but the upgrades on their top tier table are absolutely enough to warrant its higher asking amount, while everything in between covers almost every build option the music enthusiast could want for this kind of money. Are you upgrading from a starter table? The RT82 with its Ortophone OM10 cartridge and aluminum platter with rubber mat are a great deal at $300. Are you looking for a bit more clarity? The very next step up offers the incredibly popular Ortophone 2M Red. Moving up one more rung here, and you'll have what could be the most popular first-time stylus upgrade around, the Ortophone 2M Blue. What's more is if you'd like to own, say, the RT85 but just can't swing it right now, you can start with the 82 and buy the upgrade pieces later on as you'd like. They have their heavy acrylic platter that glides with ease available for purchase all by itself, as well as the Ortophone upgrade options. Bam, that's an 85. It's that easy. Maybe you have a line on a great cartridge for not a lot of money. fantastic. These tables are perfect for trying out different combinations to see what fits your listening style best, and they're quite easy to set up to boot. Therein lies the brilliance. There's no specific badge or branding denoting that you have the 82 or the 85 sitting on your rack or table or what have you, and anytime you'd like, you can upgrade piece by piece, quite literally because it's just the two pieces, to get the exact table you want here without having to put down all the money at once if you'd rather not. So how do they sound then? That's the big question because we all want the best sound we can get for the money we're spending. That said, the OM10 is not the 2M Blue. So, is it worth it to start small and then grow? As with most things in life where a decision needs to be made like this, the answer is, of course, it depends. If you're coming from something that has a low-end cartridge and you want to grow, the OM10 is certainly not a bad choice. If you're coming from something similar in price and you're looking for the best bang for your buck, however, the OM10 might not be what you want. That's why the 2M Blue is so popular. When comparing the two directly, the OM10 is going to be less lively. It has less top end and clarity, and the mids are more cluttered. But it also does have a more overall balanced feel throughout. That is to say, everything seems to fit together better instrument-wise, even if it's not as dynamic. Which is better for you? Well, only you can answer that. That's why I try to tell you what you could expect from these products as best I can, and then I leave that choice in your capable hands. So that's it then. Screw the OM10, I clearly want the 2M Blue, and that's that. Well, not so fast. For some of you, the heightened top end and excitement of the Blue will be a bit more than you might want. I personally find it too bright, and I'd say you'll definitely want to try different speakers with a setup like this to make sure you're not going to suffer from listening fatigue. Again, that's where the brilliance of these tables comes in. If you want an OM10, or any other cart for that matter, but you prefer the heavy acrylic platter, you can just go that route. Buy an 82 and then upgrade the platter separately. The choice really is yours, and I find that type of marketing refreshing. The only thing missing here that some higher-end tables do that I wish these guys did as well is offer an option to buy a table without a cartridge altogether. Then again, who knows, maybe this indeed will be an option in the future. As with everything though, there are always caveats, so let's talk about a couple. As mentioned in my RT85 review, the tone arm lift action is a little sharp, and the lift lever could do with a bit of an improvement. Something that didn't come up with the 85 review, however, is just how light the OM10 is. This is a very light cartridge. While that isn't inherently a bad thing, it does change how the tone arm moves about and reacts in the hand. When you're moving the arm over the run-in groove and going to set the stylus down, you just don't get as authoritative and secure a feeling as you do when you move something like the 2M Blue or the Goldring E3 when attached to this arm. It's just shifty, for lack of a better term, and you might take care to pay attention to just where that stylus is before lowering it. Overall, however, just as with the RT85, I can say with confidence that if you're looking at getting started and stepping up your audio game, and you'd like a table that you can grow with for a while, this series very much deserves your consideration. With its quality build at each step, coupled with its customization abilities, I think you'll quite like the RT lineup, and it performs admirably in this price range. Switching gears and moving over to the speaker side of things, Fluance's new powered speaker model, the Ai-41, much like its turntable kin, is looking to compete with higher-priced competitors while offering a better product in return. It covers multiple options for connectivity, all while not needing to connect to an amplifier of any kind, providing its own 90 watts of continuous Class D power internally. Initially, I wasn't sure how I'd try out this speaker as it seemed best suited for smaller rooms, near-field listening, and digital sources. My listening area isn't really set up this way. Then, as I was reading up on the details of the speaker in my home office, it dawned on me. My computer room was smaller, the speakers would be in the near field, and I could connect them directly to my PC with a Toslink port. Yep, that's me, super genius of the obvious. I suppose my first concern about the Ai-41 was their size. I've had the Kanto U4 in place for a few years on either side of my monitor, and part of that buying decision was based on their relatively small footprint. But when I placed the Ai-41s and started to move them about, those concerns were quickly abated. These speakers really didn't seem too large for my desk or my monitor, and the finish in which they came seemed quite nice, and they suited me, certainly. The The 41s have 4 color options available, and while all look nice on my computer screen, I'd have to say that for me, the white and bamboo mix is what I'd have picked for myself if I were purchasing these and not reviewing them. They also match the bamboo finish of the RT82 that was sent over, making for a fine looking package if you're thinking about going that route. The finish on these speakers is a vinyl wrap, but that never bothered me. I didn't really spend much time scrutinizing the finish, but even at the closer distance at which I sit to them as computer speakers, they looked very respectable, and I like that the money spent in R&D went more into the performance of these speakers than the coverings. For $250, you're not going to get all the bells and whistles, but I can also say that these speakers have it where it counts. The 41s are 6.5 inches wide, 10.9 inches tall, and 7.6 inches deep, or 16.5, 27.7, and 19.3 centimeters if you're using that newfangled measurement system that is sure to die off before it catches on. They weigh 2 different amounts as they have a powered speaker, that's the speaker that contains the amplifier and all the relative connections, and a passive speaker that is essentially just along for the ride as it gets all it needs from the powered speaker and the included 8-foot speaker cable. Those weights are roughly 8.5 and 7.5 pounds respectively. Speaking of connections on the back of the powered speaker, you'll find options for traditional RCA inputs, Bluetooth 5.0, and the aforementioned Toslink optical. It has a port for an optional subwoofer that, when connected, will use an active 80 Hz low-pass crossover, allowing for less distortion from the 41s and letting the sub handle the lower frequencies. I wasn't able to test this feature, but with all the 41 has going for it, I couldn't see it not performing as described. There's an included remote control which, while simple enough, handles all the necessary function you'd like, such as treble and bass adjustments that actually have an impact on the sound, your typical volume up and down with a track play, pause, and skip feature, and a source selection button, and even a button to control the brightness of the LED on the front of the powered speaker. You can choose from 100% brightness, 25%, or none at all. Sure, that's not a load of choices, but again, for $250, having the option to adjust the LED at all shows that the people making this speaker put some thought into it. All the fit, finish, and features in the world, though, won't amount to anything if this speaker doesn't sound good. So, how did the AI-41 perform? With a 5-inch woven glass fiber driver handling the mid-bass, and a 1-inch silk softone neodymium tweeter that is ferrofluid cooled taking care of the higher-end details, I'm actually a bit embarrassed to say that these speakers performed much better than I'd anticipated they would. This has nothing to do with my confidence in the Fluance team, but rather with my experience with the more expensive Kanto U4 powered speakers I've been using for years. Yes, the Kanto has a mid-bass driver that is 1 inch smaller than the 41, and its overall form factor is less imposing, measuring almost 9 inches tall, 5.5 wide, and 7.5 deep. But with its similar construction using Kevlar for their driver, and it also boasting a 1-inch silk dome tweeter, I really expected the two to sound very similar. Actually, in the back of my mind, I think I was expecting the Kanto to outperform the AI-41 because I paid over $150 more for the Kanto. As you can probably gather, that simply wasn't the case. While the 41 are definitely built for the smaller room and near-field listening I mentioned earlier, they pack quite a punch for their size, and I was very impressed with their depth of sound coming from the relatively smaller stature. While I don't have the tools to measure frequency output of a speaker, yet, I can tell you that the claim made by Fluance of the AI-41 reaching down to 35 Hz seems very plausible to me. Yes, they're using DSP to help achieve this, but using a Class D amp and digital signal processor to garner the results I was hearing doesn't mean that these speakers will sound cold and lifeless. As a matter of fact, I found them quite the opposite. They were just slightly on the warmer side of neutral, with plenty of detail and high-end clarity. I was surprised on several occasions to hear the low-end notes hitting with deep authority and never getting muddy or boomy. Certainly the near-field listening position helped with this, but that was also by design. The listening position also helped with a surprisingly accurate soundstage and imaging. A slight toe-in position yielded excellent results in hearing where instruments and voices were coming from in any given mix. I ran these speakers with music directly from my PC, streamed from my phone via Bluetooth, and with several games over the past 2 months I've been using them, and I will tell you that I've been impressed with almost every source. I say almost because, as we know, there are always trade-offs. So, here are the particulars I wasn't so fond of with the AI-41. While they were not marketed to be a vinyl playback solution all on their own, you will find several photos that suggest you can connect a turntable directly to them and just be on your way. Unless your turntable has a built-in phono preamp, however, that just isn't the case. This isn't the end of the world, as there are a host of affordable phono pre's out there, from the widely regarded Shit Manny to Fluance's own PA10, so finding one to connect won't be all that difficult or expensive. However, even when I did connect a turntable to a phono pre and then to the 41, I got a bit of hum, presumably from a lack of grounding. So if you're looking at these speakers as something of an all-in-one solution for vinyl playback in your bedroom or office, you might want to keep this in mind. Lastly, I'd say that they lack a little bit in the way of connectivity options. While I personally had no issue with this, many of you out there might want to have more than one digital input or a USB connection, and you won't find that here like you will on the Kanto U4. That being said though, with the sonic performance of the 41s, I would take their slightly more limited connection options and superior sound in a minute over the Kantos. So who is this speaker for? I'd say anyone that is looking for a quality sound in a more intimate setting, especially those of you who are on a budget. Perhaps you stream podcasts in your bedroom, maybe you have a PC in your office, or you want to hook up a CD player in a loft. If you're in a smaller room or perhaps in a near-field listening situation, for $250, I would highly recommend that you take a look at the Fluance Ai 41. Now that I've had them for a while, I am seriously considering purchasing them and just keeping them here. I've been that happy with their performance in my home PC setup. What about you? Are you in the market for a new turntable? Have you been looking into powered speakers but haven't heard much about them? I'd love to hear about it in the comments section below. And if you've managed to stick around this long, I'd say that liking this video and subscribing is probably a no-brainer. Thanks very much for stopping by for this rare two-product review, and I look forward to next time.